Hotepu, and welcome to our Complexity Science 101-3 class, The Edge of Chaos. Let's dive right in. Our first image and slide shows the famous Mandelbrot fractal, which by now you know very well, emerging out of the water. This image truly captures the opening verses of the Egyptian scripture called the Book of Creation, where it states that Kemet, the Creator, emerged from the waters of Nun, the waters of possibility and infinity, or the void. And when Kemet emerged, when this beetle emerged from the waters of nothingness, he emerged with patterns, with shapes. And this we learned in an earlier DVD, that all complex systems create patterns spontaneously within themselves. There's no external creator or director or dictator telling all the parts what to do. If you recall, in an earlier class I discussed, if I were to lock, let's say, 10 of you in a room with no door or window to get out of, patterns will emerge within your behaviors spontaneously without someone directing it or controlling it. A leader will emerge, followers will emerge, courageous people will emerge, cowards will emerge, loyalists will emerge, traitors will emerge, and this will happen automatically. This is the nature of all complex systems. Things happen through a kind of mysterious synchronicity, and it is ordered. Now, in the video I had you watch that's attached to this DVD, you learned how we mathematically generate a fractal. And the video discussed there are two kinds of numbers. Numbers that go inward towards zero, and numbers that keep going infinitely outward. The zero moving numbers going inward are colored black. All other numbers are colored in different colors, based upon the rate of their escape from zero. So, in the Mandelbrot fractal, you see here on this first slide, the black zone corresponds to all the numbers that went inward towards the center, towards zero. They zeroed out. All the other colors correspond to numbers that kept going off, flying off, almost explosively, infinitely outward, away from zero. So we have three basic forces. We have the waters of possibility, within which emerge dualities of forces that go inward like gravity and outward like radiation. Thus the androgynous source of the universe, the three. One entity made of two dipoles, two parts. Really one dipole. We showed this duality of fractals as the next slide, called Nehebkau, the two-headed serpent. You're looking at now three forces. The single tail is the oneness, the void, the unity of it all, within which emerge two opposing forces, the upper head and the lower head. The upper head corresponds to the outward moving forces, the centrifugal radiative forces, and the lower head is the centripetal gravitational inward moving forces. In the video I put on YouTube about Sky Lessons number 3, I had you look at the horizons east totally and west totally, and you saw toroidal motions. In the east, things seem to come out of a central funnel and spill out like a fountain, going outward. And in the west, it seemed as if things were coming in from the edges, like a bowl, the water coming in from the bowl and spouting downwards towards the center. Gravitational. That whole mathematics was shown by this serpent. This serpent is the code for toroidal motion, for centripetal motion, as well as for all spirals. If you made this serpent in 3D, he would be a spiral, which is called the Fibonacci series. By the Westerners, we knew it well before Fibonacci was born. We called it the Nehebkau series of numbers. the spiral that controls the growth of all things in the universe. So, we have three forces. The neutral force, within which we have an outward motion like centrifugal force or radiation, and an inward motion like gravity or centripetal. So we have one snake's head, the upper head, the outward moving numbers, those are the colors in the fractal of Mandelbrot, and the smaller lower head would be the black zone, the zeroing in zone. The next slide is a more visual expression of this concept. Figure 3 shows the inward moving centripetal gravitational force of life, the numbers going in towards 0. Figure 4 shows the numbers going infinitely out away from 0. In and out. The two-headed serpent shown in this slide. Our next slide is simply an iteration of this, shown on a much larger scale and variance. How great cosmic forces also have this push-pull, this double-headed snake. One snake's head pulling things in towards the center, one pulling them out from the center. And to read through this little blurb is very interesting to see how these forces always counterbalance each other. They're very androgynous. They don't compete, they cooperate. For the heterosexual world, competition is their main ethic. They don't see how nature does not compete. Nature cooperates and finds the balance fulcrum point between all dualities. But that's a neurosis typical of heterosexual communities. The next slide shows a more down-to-earth image of this, where you can see this in more realistic terms. Let's say you have a chain that's been attached to a wall and you pull the chain. You are now feeling the two-headed snake. You are feeling the 0 and infinite numbers of the fractal. As you're pulling the chain, it resists you. The chain is going towards gravitational energy, inward energy, stasis, staying the same, not moving. You're trying to move it, change it, pulling it through centrifugal force. So life is these two serpents. Life is always a field which has forces pulling in and forces pulling out on the same energy. You learned in your cool classes to memorize the next slide of the Udus of Ifa. And here we see the patterns shown in two columns. So if Ejogbe has two columns, Oyekumeji has two columns, Iworimeji has two columns, a left and a right and a left. What this means is that in these Udus, it is taught that the right column always comes first. Let's pick the fifth one called Irosunmeji. Has light, light, dark, dark on the right, and then light, light, dark, dark on the left. You always read from the right to the left in the Udus. So we say the right leg, these are called the two legs of wisdom. The right side is going out to visit the left side. So the right side of your Udu in your Seed of Life reading you received from me at the beginning of your training, I gave you a reading called the Seed of Life, composed of these two legs in whatever pattern came for your particular life's journey. The right side of that reading is going outward, radiative, centrifugal energy, going out. The right side is the gravitational side, but it's being pulled outward by the left side. So the right side of your Seed of Life is your gravitational center. That side of your reading centers you. It's your home base. And the left leg of your reading is what's pulling you from center, pulling you out into an adventure. And we say that the right leg goes out on an adventure with the left leg, only to return back to the right leg. So we have this feedback loop of the right energy going out to discover the left side's world, only to return back to the right to assimilate the lessons learned in the left leg's worlds. So even in our great African oracles, we see fractal geometry at work. We see Nehebkao. We see push-pull. And this push-pull controls your whole life. You get up in the morning, you go out, you come back home. You go out, you come in. You go out, radiative force, you come in, gravitational force. Your body's always growing. It's the same body. That's gravitational. But it's always changing and growing. That's radiative. And there's a point of balance between staying yourself yet allowing change. And this is a key concept in chaos theory. We saw in the Udu Ifa slide just now, one stroke, two stroke, one stroke, two stroke, or 2 and 1, different combinations thereof. The next slide shows you what was talked about in the YouTube video, where you have zeros and 1, numbers that go in towards 0, and numbers that go out infinitely. So there are 2 kinds of numbers, meaning 2 heads of the snake. One head of Nehebkao, the lower, smaller head, are the zeroing numbers, the numbers that zero in. The other head are the numbers that go out infinitely, making the colors. And the tones of the colors you see are based upon the rate of escape from 0. So, here we have 0, 1, 1, 0. In the slide before, the Udu Zifa, we had 1 stroke, 2 stroke, 2 stroke, 1 stroke, or again a binary 0, 1, 1, 0. Here you're seeing in this square 0 being fed into 1, the result of that being fed into 0, that new result being fed into 1, being fed into 0, and you're seeing the same formula feeding in on itself, shown as the serpent biting its own tail. The real meaning of that image, the serpent biting its own tail, is fractal mathematics. You feed a formula's result back into the formula, getting a new result. You feed that new second result back into the formula to get a third new result. You feed the third new result back into the same formula, you get a fourth result. Feed the fourth result into the same original formula, you get a new fifth result. You do this infinitely, you start getting clouds and mountains and people and water and flowers. Things start emerging as patterns spontaneously out of infinity, out of nowhere. The same with your Udu. When you learn to work with your Udu reading from your seed of life, your zeros and ones, your single slash, double slash strokes, the more you keep working with it, you're going to see new patterns emerging. The more you zoom into it deeply, in detail, you're going to find all of your life is in those 8 strokes and those 2 halves. Your entire life is there. Now, the next slide shows this kind of hypnosis spiral, which is Nehebkao, again, from a different point of view. And this is an image to capture that you can't resist your center. Your seed of life, your destiny reading, is the center of your life, shown as the black dot in the center of this spiral. And all you're doing is being pulled in towards this center. You're spiraling, and every adventure, every mishap, every lesson, every good thing, every bad thing in your life is a point on the spiral that you are being drawn to, because the center Udu, your central seed reading, is using you to discover more about itself at this time and place in the universe. In other words, the Udu uses you as its vessel of discovery and adventure at this point in time and space. Only you can have this experience of your life at this point in history. So your Udu says, I want to learn more about my powers from your point of view at this time. So it sends you off, dispatches you on this adventure called your life, called your karmas, and you go out, radiative force, you learn lessons, you do things, you make mistakes, you learn from them, and then you absorb and assimilate the lessons. Your Odu at night absorbs your lessons and grows. The word Odu means you grow. O means you, and Du means grow or exert. So you're always growing, but the core, the center, is feeding on your lessons, learning from you. Every time you sleep, every time you reflect, every time you meditate, the Udu absorbs the lessons of your consciousness. And thus it grows, it odu's itself. Odu, you grow. At the same time, it compels you outward to certain karmic experiences for things it knows it needs to learn. You call that your life. You call that your adventure. You call that your ups and downs. But the central dot controls it all. It's your center. Our next slide shows the same idea from a different point of view, where we have these bubbles in a spiraling circle. Again, you have the central dot down the center of your fractal zooming in. That's your udu, the life lesson you've come to Earth to learn. And you simply learn different angles of it, the same lesson over and over and over, in different ways, different angles, different levels or octaves of understanding. And so this is the key thing for your readings. So we then move on to the next slide, which is looking at your patterns from a different point of view still. It's very good to look at your patterns from many angles. Here we have this upper left slide showing a spiral again, but you see there's a crossbar in the center, and the crossbar represents a field of influence, what they call an axis, which we use for all of our temples, we use for aligning all of our monuments, that controls the growth of the spiral. There are these invisible fields or lines of force, what we call the udu, which controls you, controls your whole life. The next image shows kind of a slinky spiral which has a central line going through it, and this line is again an axis controlling the scope, the width of the spiral itself. The third image shows again the crossbars, but a different pattern, but they're controlled by the crossbar axes, these invisible lines of force. And the bottom butterfly-like image is again showing you can have a pattern in life, you can have behaviors or personality, a way of living or acting, but it's always within the parameters of a hidden guiding force between lines of axis, what we call your udu or life reading. Once you have your pattern set, you can't escape it. You can only find new tweaks in it. Once you are a bear, you're going to be a bear. You can't be a goat. All you can do is discover new ways of being a bear. It's that kind of idea. Many Americans don't like that concept. They want to always believe they can change and grow and be something else, but this is not true. You are what you're meant to be, and your job is not to become something different, but to go deeper into what you already are. Our next slide shows fractal geometry as circles repeating, meaning the patterns of your life, the lessons of your life. Imagine these circles were your life lessons, and they are repeating. So you have two circles which intersect, forming this kind of vesica piscis in the middle, and inside of that there are two more circles that interlock, forming a new fish shape inside of those, and inside of that another fish shape, and it keeps going on and on and on. What this is showing is that the original circles that are interlocked don't change their shape. They don't change their way of being, their behavior. Let's say these two circles are a bear. They simply keep repeating levels of themselves on different scales. So you get interlocked circles forming this kind of eye shape. Inside of that eye shape, two more circles form like the original two. And then they lock, forming a new eye shape. Inside of that eye shape, you have two more circles interlocking, forming a third eye shape, even smaller. And you're seeing the circles and the fish and the circles are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but not really changing ultimately. This is the key to understanding a fractal. Once you have your pattern set in, what's called your seed pattern, or your udu, your reading of your destiny, it simply does this behavior. It keeps its basic shape going in, without changing itself fundamentally. Okay, our next slide brings us to the theme of this lecture, which is the edge of chaos. And the edge of chaos is the point or the zone between the black beetle bug, the numbers that went inward towards 0, and the colored zones outside the black bug, all the other colors, which were the numbers that keep going out infinitely. If you notice, between those two are these fuzzy lightning bolt zones. They look like hairy, furry areas. They're called Julia sets. They're very rich mathematical constructs. And it's in that fuzziness that you see there, where you can zoom in. In your other class where you had to zoom into the Mandelbrot YouTube video, you were zooming into the fuzzy areas. Not the black and not the colors, but the lightning bolt fuzzies. That lightning bolt area is technically called the edge of chaos. It's the place between the black beetle and the colors. The black beetle are the numbers that did what? Went down to 0. They stayed still. That's boredom. That's the same old, same old. The numbers that all go to the same place. In your life, you know that as being bored, not changing, what they call in chaos theory homeostasis. So part of you is pulling you towards staying the same, towards 0. That's one of the heads of the serpent, going in towards the sameness. The colored zones around the fractal bug are the numbers that escaped infinitely, didn't stop. Those are, in your life, excitement, input, lots of friends, never staying still, always moving. So you have numbers that don't want to change or move. That's the black bug, the black numbers. And the numbers that want to keep moving and changing. That's the colors. If you stayed in the black zone, you become depressed. You enter what's called entropic states of being. Depressed, the same, bored, no change in your life. If you stay in the colored zones too much, you become ADHD, neurotic, stressed, overwhelmed, too much input, too much action. The place that you want to be is not in the black zone too much and not in the colored zone too much, but in the fuzzy lightning bolt zones, called the edge between the same old and always changing, between the old and the new. You want to be somewhere between those two. And it's only in, underline the word only in the fuzzy parts of the bug where you can discover new patterns. It's the only part of the fractal you can zoom into. It looks really tiny and thin, but it goes in forever. So the edge of chaos means having the courage to be who you are, stay yourself, yet invite risk, invite change. You don't want to stay the same too much. You don't want to change too much. One makes you basically die. One makes you crazy. When a person's put in jail, why that's a punishment is because it begins to make that person zero in to stillness, to total nothing. When you're in jail, you're not allowed to interact very much. Your relationships are eclipsed. So you have to go towards a 0 phase. So, if you're willing to take on adventure, just enough, a little bit, not too much, you enter the fuzzy part. Now it's fuzzy, I think it's interesting that it's fuzzy, because when you're taking on a risk, it's fuzzy. You never know what's going to happen. It's a new discovery. It's the unknown. But it's only then that the excitement creates something inside of you, the stress and tension. And that lightning bolt part of the image, I think, is also very interesting, because lightning bolt is scary. It's dangerous. It's risky. And when you embrace change, it's like being shocked, but only in the stress. Just enough stress, not too much, just enough to make a muscle grow, or to make an emotional muscle or mental muscle or philosophical muscle grow, just enough to get you to be shocked into a new place, a new discovery. And this slide shows this man on his bicycle, between this cliff. This is a very amazing shot. And let's imagine the cliff on the left would be the black bug, and the cliff on the right would be the fuzzies, the colors, I mean. And here he is on the edge of chaos. He's taking the risk of going across this dangerous precipice, and on the other side he discovers something new within himself. By taking the risk, he zoomed in and discovered a new level of his patterns. The question is, can you take this? It's a very short distance between these two cliffs. But boy, is it thrilling. Is it dangerous? Is it full of change? You must learn in life to live in the edge of chaos, to take a risk, to not be the same, to try new things, different things. Try simple things like putting your watch on the other hand in the morning, or if you put your left shoe on first, try your right shoe. If you drive to work the same old way every day, try a new route. If you like to wear the same color clothes every day, try a new color. These simple little changes to the homeostasis, your regular same old, throw you into the fuzzy electric zone of this bug. And just those tiny changes bring in the edge of chaos, excitement, discovery, adventure. And it's only in this edge, where he's on this tight wire, that you grow. I repeat, you can only grow in life when you willingly let in a little bit of risk. You open to just a little bit of adventure in your life. You try something different. Difference makes you grow. Too much sameness kills you. Too much change kills you with stress. Just enough change makes you a very interesting person. So we would say this tightrope is the edge of chaos. That would be the fuzzies in your image of the Mandelbrot fractal. So our next slide shows a graphic of a person being different. Here we have a group of figures, all the same, going on, it seems, forever, all the same. And then one person jumps out, makes a whole crazy movement, and is different. This person has just entered the edge of chaos. He will now grow. He will now discover new things. He will now evolve. He will now have new relationships and interactions with his fractal in his life. He's now on an adventure. And the purpose of life is to grow, is to have an adventure without being too crazy. Here we see an image of the results of entering the edge of chaos. Look how happy he looks. Look at the excitement he has in his body, his being. This is what's potential if you take the risk. Not a big one again. Don't take crazy risks, take smart ones. Now, this brings us to the last part of our DVD here, which is, how do golden beetle men, how do Africans enter the danger zone, the risk zone, the unknown adventure? Because Africans are primarily an inward people, they tend towards the gravitational energy, the inward centripetal force, and Westerners are more electric, externalizing, outward moving. Africans prefer to have the risks occur within. This is called Shamanism, where you learn to go into the gravitational direction, the inward centripetal motion of the two-headed snake, and find yourself there. You take inner risks. How do we ensure this for the initiate? In Africa, we ensure it through readings, which you see here in this next slide. You see this African priest holding what's called the Ikin palm nuts over what's called the tray of Ifa, the Opon Ifa, and you see two chains, one on his left, one on his right. That's called the Opele. And when I performed your Seed of Life reading, I used these very same tools to find out your destiny, your seed fractal. Now, since Shamans are more inward creatures. They like to have their adventures in the dream time or in meditation or in trance. When you get a reading from an African high oracle, it pushes you. It's never comfortable. It always seems to hurt and sting a bit. That's because it's pushing you into the edge of chaos. It's pushing you out from the black beetle of the same old, just enough into a danger zone of discovery. And that's why oftentimes when you get a reading, you're nervous. That's the lightning bolts, your nerves firing off, because you know this can go any way. You have no idea where the reading's going to take you. And you know once you get it, you better follow it. That makes you get hot, you start sweating, your heart pounds, your nerves go off, because you're entering the danger zone. But this is the African tool to make sure that people grow, that the nation does not stay stagnant in the same old bad laws, bad rules, same old traditions. It has to evolve, because all of nature evolves. So the Africans devised a tool to help their people evolve in a divine way. So it is through these shells, through these chains, that the reading challenges you. And you're never going to like it. But is any risk without displeasure? Is any challenge in life going to be easy? Never. And if you follow the reading, if you take on the challenge, if you walk the tightrope, you will zoom into your fractal and discover new sides of yourself, new patterns, colors, shapes, zones inside of your own life. And you never know how it's going to land. That's part of the adventure. Just hold on to the reading. Just hold on to the reading. And what will happen is you'll learn in the end, you land on a deeper, bigger part of yourself. One that you did not know unless you had this challenge, this so-called stress. That's why they're lightning bolt looking. And remember, the lightning bolts are not drawn. They are created mathematically. If you take the number of feet back, it creates those fuzzy shapes all by itself. So nature likes challenge. That's why plants need wind. Makes the branches stronger. They have to have new winds to keep the branches always micro-moving, to toughen them up. So they survive, and they transmit that information to the next generation. So you keep learning, going out learning, coming back in, assimilating, out learning, and this is how you grow. So we don't recommend you take adventures through crazy ways, like jumping off bridges, or you can bungee jump, that kind of thing. It's not going to, if you're safe. But that's an external adventure. We as humans are mental creatures. Bears and tigers and lions have strength, and animals have speed and stealth, and they have weapons and poisons. They have physical might to survive. What's the human survival tool? The mind, intelligence, consciousness. That's our gift, our speciality in the nature kingdoms. So we're supposed to evolve in consciousness, evolve mentally. And that's why the Africans used oracles. Now, this tray you see here, it's a bit, you're looking at it from the top down, but if you look at the bottom of the tray, you see a face carved. It's inside of like two parenthesis type carvings. There's a little face. That's the trickster. That is the trickster, the famous trickster you've all heard about. He is the watcher of all oracles. And he watches you at every reading to see, do you have the guts to do it? Will you go back to the black beetle and stay the same and say, no, I won't do that? Or will you have the guts to dare to try it? And if you dare to try it, he tricks you into a bigger, better version of your own self. If you don't, he tricks you into a more depressed, stagnant side of your own self. That's why he's a trickster. Our next slide shows, again, how the Africans dealt with the edge of chaos. Here we have a brother during a voodoo ritual. He's in trance doing a ritual to the river god, and he's in trance. He's being possessed by the gods. He's being hit by the spirit world. And if you've been in a ritual, it's always shocking, like lightning bolts. It's always, you never know what's going to happen. You never know who will get hit, what's going to happen, what they're going to say. It's exciting. It's like the tightrope, but it's on a spiritual inner level. And you see he seems to be yelling or screaming or shouting out for joy or revelation or insight. We don't know. And when he heard the drums and the water pounding and the waterfall here you see him on, he didn't know what was going to happen. Edge of chaos, excitement. And through that, he's going to have a breakthrough. He's going to discover something new of his own being, which will heal his life, heal his spirit. So Africans use ritual and oracles for their adventure. We don't bungee jump too much. I don't think Africans are very fond of the bungee jump technique or the cave climbing technique, mountain climbing number. That's not African very much. You do that when you don't have an inner adventure. You tend towards outer adventures. Our next slide shows an Egyptian image from the Book of Caverns, it's called. And here we see an initiate having a shamanic journey, a shamanic experience. Look, there are these 5-headed snakes within which he is. He's been swallowed by a snake. That would be scary, don't you think? He fell into a trance. He's in perhaps a temple or a pyramid, and they're singing and drumming. He fell into a trance. He got swallowed by a 5-headed snake. And something happened inside that snake's belly to him. That's pretty unexpected. That can be shocking. So here we have an Egyptian ritual. How the Egyptians began to have edge of chaos through shamanic, shocking visions and epiphanies. Our next slide shows the master tool to complexity beetles. And here you've seen this before, the judgment scene of Ani, the famous hall of Ma'ah, of truth and character. Look carefully at the scales. You see sitting on the central vertical bar a tiny figure. It's hard to read, he's so tiny. That's Awon, the itty bitty monkey. We will learn in future classes he's actually what's called the tipping point in a fractal. But here he's also correspondent to daring the edge of chaos. He's called the trickster, who owns all doors. What do the doors mean? Think about it. If you have a door that you've never seen before, you're on one side of the door. What's on the other side? You have no idea. It could be rabid dogs. It could be a bunch of rats. It could be piles of gold. You have no idea. It's the unknown. And to turn the knob and open it takes an act of courage. To turn the door is to enter the edge of chaos, the fuzzy lightning bolts of your own beetle fractal. That's why he owns all doors. At every reading, there's a door. Let's say you get a reading, and the god Ahi, the god of art and music, comes. And he says art is only to be used to uplift the gay community. Not to sell liquor and drinks, but to uplift their souls. And you're an artist. You make your money from being an artist. That's how you pay your bills. And then Ahi comes in the reading. It says we open the door to the true meaning of art. And there you are, at the crossroads, at the door. Will I take on the adventure? Will I take on this change? Or will I recede back to the black part of the beetle and stay the same? Which means you die. That's why it's color black. It's a death energy. You don't grow. You become stagnant. So this little monkey is always teasing us, testing us. He's always needling us, taunting us to see will we rise up to the taunt, will we break through. And this tableau of the golden tablet here, the Hall of Ma'ah, explains the entire mathematics of fractal geometry in one image. So, our last couple of slides. Here we have Egyptian priests inside of the pyramid. And if you are an artist hearing these podcasts and you want to contribute your art skills to the golden beetle, please let us know, because this image shows them as very European, and we need to have someone that can draw this kind of image with more authentic African features. But ignoring that, look at what's happening. We're having a man in a coffin, a sarcophagus. The other brothers of the Brotherhood have candles and incense, and they're using certain magical gestures and crowns they're wearing to help him leave his body. That bird coming out of his third eye is his Ba. He's having an astral travel experience. He's on an inner adventure. He's done the readings. They told him to get into the coffin on this date and to chant these sounds and to leave your body and go discover some part of the universe or your inner universe and dare to grow spiritually. This is the result of the edge of chaos. He is now in the edge of chaos. He's in a tomb. He's in a coffin. That could be a little scary. Think about it. I put you in a coffin and I have you go into a sleep when we close it on you. And you have to wake up on the inside. You've got to find some internal resource to get out that coffin that's not physical. You see, the stress, this is the purpose of all initiation trials, to stress the initiate. Only through stress, carefully managed, do you grow. Only through stress do you get a muscle in the gym. Only through stress, keep practicing, do you improve your tennis game or your piano playing. There is no growth without challenge. And we understand now, challenge is a good thing. It's the edge of chaos. It's where I see the patterns of my life. It's where I can zoom in. So, may you enjoy the edge of chaos, and may for the next 4 weeks you push yourself just a little bit. Not too much, just enough. Like I said, drive to or from work a certain way, smile a different way, try new clothes, new colors, meet new people, do something different from the same old, same old. And mysteriously, you will find new and exciting change. Kepera, the beetle, flying your way. The winds of change will evolve you. So, repeat this DVD, learn it well, and understand these concepts of the edge of chaos. Dwawen Hotepu.